Good evening, this is Miss Jill Louise Starr, and tonight I'm going to read the first part of the book that Darko Trifunovic and I wrote together called The Bosnian Model of Al-Qaeda Terrorism, Modus Operandi. It was printed by the Republika Srpska Documentation Center of the Republika Srpska Bureau for Relations with the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia of the Republika Srpska in Banja Luka. Again, it's entitled Islamic Fundamentalist Global Network Modus Operandi Model Bosnia. The Documentation Center and Bureau for Relation with the ICTY of the Republika Srpska would like to thank all of those who committed themselves to fight against terrorism, and violence, period. Special thanks we would like to address His Excellency, the President at the time this was written, Mr. George W. Bush, President of the United States of America, in his efforts to stop, prevent, and punish all forms of terror and terrorist activities, especially those committed by Islamic Jihad warriors on their way to devastate modern values and civilization. I edited and wrote the first book with Darko. He stated that I had all the rights to this book, and I gave him all the rights to everything that I wrote. I think it's important at this time that all this Islamicism is erupting all over the world, that people can have a better understanding of how the Muslim Brotherhood in particular is associated, affiliated, and works with Al-Qaeda. And I don't really understand why President Obama is working with the Muslim Brotherhood and sponsoring them in Libya to become part of the government, and also in other areas of the world such as Pakistan and Afghanistan, Syria. Let me start at chapter 1, which would be the proper place to start here. And this book summarizes the results of researching of many years in work on gathering information about the presence of Islamic fundamentalist jihad warriors, mujahideen's, the Bureau of Government of Republika Srpska for relations with the International Tribunal for War Crimes in The Hague, and Center for Collecting the Data for the Republic of Srpska. In the following pages and chapters, this book represents the draft of a network of Islamic fundamentalists in the world and their connections and operations on the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is generally known that the fact that Muslims jihad warriors have extended their network in the former Yugoslavia. If you don't know it now. The aim of this book is to present this study and to introduce the results of this work of joint research of the aforementioned institutions of the Republika Srpska government, not only to the citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also to all countries of the world, agencies and institutions, which have been involved in a joint allied fight against terrorism in our shared world. We use this occasion also to express readiness of exchange of experiences and information in order to stop terrorism on mostly the most efficient ways possible, as it is a world problem. This was written by the manager of the Documentation Center, Dr. Pio Durasinovic, head of the Bureau, who I met, and me, Darko, and my daughter had lunch with at the Six Brothers Diner in Montclair by the Montclair University, Mr. Dan Militic. And I will read chapter 1 this evening. Brief historical background. The United States Congressional Research Service report states that Al-Qaeda cells have currently been identified and have also been objectively suspected in at least 34 countries and their affiliated geopolitical territories presently. Moreover, the same report dated September 10, 2001 was released in Washington, D.C. on September 13, 2001. only 2 days after the September 11th terrorist attacks that were perpetrated against America's World Trade Center by Osama bin Laden. And Osama bin Laden was to have been estimated to have inherited roughly $300 million from his family, and through charitable contributions, many of which were implemented in Paterson, New Jersey, and were taken down after September 11th. It's also known, if you don't know, that William Paterson University of New Jersey, of which I'm an alumni of, and I graduated from that university, I wrote a paper that the university was very insecure. Anyone could walk in the libraries, and one day an act of terrorism was going to occur, because nobody was asked their student IDs, and anyone could just walk in the library and use the computers or the computer science rooms. And in fact, one of the 9/11 hijackers that ran his plane into the World Trade Center bought his ticket by doing just that, walking into my old university, William Paterson University of New Jersey, and bought an airline ticket from there. Nobody asked him his identification or what have you. Continuing right along here. Although some terrorist experts believe bin Laden actually has far less than 300 million, this figure presently, and he is no longer reliant on his personal fortune to finance al-Qaeda's activities, they claim that alternatively he is, employing a variety of both legal and illegal business endeavors as fronts for financing his terrorist activities, which is true, as the FBI found in Paterson, New Jersey, where a lot of al-Qaeda does exist. In fact, I used to go to the pain center of a man who no longer can practice medicine, Dr. Qureshi. It's hard for me to pronounce his name. Dr. Qureshi. He was, before that, the head of the psychiatric department at Chilton Hospital. Me and Darko went in there one day. He gave me a ride to my pain appointment, and while we were waiting, and we usually had to wait at least 8 hours to see him, which was ridiculous, I fired him soon after. But one day when we were in there, we saw that he had flyers, and he was asking for money to promote Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda. We grabbed a few of them and we sent them to the missions of the United Nations, but all we got from the United States mission was that we were radical Serbs, and it was during the 1999 crisis in Kosovo, in which Bill Clinton had a illegal war perpetrated against the former Yugoslavia and Kosovo, and we were totally ignored. And the information here in this book, and other information on the Mujahideen. In fact, we also met with Senator Republican Mr. Nicholson on the Beltway, and we brought several boxes of pictures and background information on the Mujahideen, and that's on my blog. You can see what happened with that. Over the previous 6 years, al-Qaeda's network was led by Osama bin Laden, and it has evolved from merely a small regional threat, beginning with USW troops stationed in the Persian Gulf, into an all-out global threat to international peace and perpetual human survival, including a direct threat, especially directed against the United States citizens and the United States associated national security interests. In constructing al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden has assembled a coalition of disparate radical Islamist groups comprised of a variety of ethnic nationalities, all to work towards one common goal, which is, in Bosnia-Herzegovina, the total ethnic expulsion of everyone non-Muslim, so that only Islamist racists are left as the overall controlling influence of these future ethnically pure Islamic Muslim inherited lands, as which the Croats, which I will show you later, holding a Nazi flag, were allies with Adolf Hitler, and also were allies with the Bosniaks and the Islamists in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They wished for the Croats and the Muslims, mostly in Bosnia, want the total ethnic expulsion of everyone non-Muslim, which is Serbian, and that's why Ratko Mladic expelled them. He did not commit genocide against them. He expelled them in buses, and I have proof of the video online, as many other people do. And many of them that were said to be he had committed ethnic genocide against were found later partying in other parts of Bosnia. Moving right along, in constructing Al-Qaeda, bin Laden assembled a coalition of many radical Islamic groups that had the one goal of expulsion of everyone non-Muslim in Bosnia and Herzegovina, so that only one Islamic inhabited pure land would exist, and where there would be and exist only multi-ethnic, where in Bosnia and Herzegovina, just as the Al-Qaeda wishes for in America, where there was once would be a multi-ethnic community like there was in America today, and also in Bosnia there is today, and there was existing under Slobodan Milosevic. By the time Al-Qaeda was done with Bosnia, Kosovo, Serbia, Montenegro, and Herzegovina, there would only be one pure Islamic race. And that is what the Al-Qaeda in Bosnia overarching ideology has always been, and always been elucidated in several of their books and pronouncements signed by Osama bin Laden himself and his associated allies. First and foremost, Osama bin Laden is notably given monetary financial support to his Islamic fighters and/or terrorists against Serbian forces in Bosnia, against Soviet forces in Afghanistan, and now against Russian forces which are actively fighting against terrorism within Chechnya. Osama bin Laden is also renowned to have been and is actively, well, he's dead now, but he was actively financing Islamist fighters trying to gain ultimate military control over the Indian-held Kashmir in India, against the secular pro-Western forces and their associated pro-Western Qasman. Kenneth cited from CRS report for Congress entitled Terrorism, Near Eastern Groups, Endnote, and state sponsors, dated September 10, 2001. Governments within Egypt, Algeria, Saudi Arabia, Uzbekistan, and also against the United States troops and American citizens currently residing within the geopolitical terrain of the Persian Gulf, Somalia, Yemen, Jordan, and against September 11th manifested even the United States mainland itself. And 2. Al-Qaeda cells have been also currently identified and also actively suspected within Afghanistan, Pakistan, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Chechnya, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Yemen, Jordan, Egypt, Libya, Lebanon, Algeria, Tunisia, Sudan, Mauritania, Somalia, Eritrea, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia, Bangladesh, Malaysia, the Philippines, Uruguay, Ecuador, Bosnia, Kosovo, Albania, Britain, Canada, and the United States. It is also noteworthy to comprehend that this report did not, however, make it clear the real home to the Al-Qaeda cells expanding their sphere of ideological religious influence in the aforementioned areas is generally both Iran and Syria. And bear in mind, this was written in 1999 by me and Darko 10 years ago, and it is only now coming to light on CNN because we were ignored by the United States and every other mission at the United Nations. We stayed up all night in 1999 before I attended the preparatory meetings of the International Criminal Court. And me and Darko faxed every United Nations mission urging them to immediately fire an Al-Qaeda agent which was working undercover, Mr. Kalovich, who spoke poor English, and Darko confided to me privately he suspected him as an Al-Qaeda agent and could prove it. He was an international arms trader for Osama bin Laden, but yet our response from the U.S. Embassy and Richard Holbrooke at the time was to shut up, you Serb nationalists, we're conducting a war here, and we don't want to hear about that. And then immediately, a few days after that, 9/11 occurred. My daughter was born in 9/11, by the way. Evidently, it was no surprise that Al-Qaeda is obviously an extremely well-organized network consisting of many variant Islamist organizations currently acting globally. The common factor in all of Al-Qaeda's cells and groupings is these groups use terrorism to attain their political goals, an agenda whose main priority is to coup d'etat the present democratically elected governments currently implemented in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Al-Qaeda considers currently comprised of, quote, heretical infidel governments, and to reestablish in their place, and this is a note too, cited from Vox magazine, The Herald, which Daniel Kolak from William Patterson College, who I attended his late night philosophy meetings and who worked with Daniel Spielberg, laughed at. And I said, what are you laughing at? And he said, and showed me Croats torturing Serbs. And he said, isn't that grand? And from then on I was scared to death because me and my family was Jewish. And he hated Jews as well. This pamphlet was entitled, quote, What Will Happen to Serbs in the Islamic Republic, in the Future Islamic Republic of Bosnia-Herzegovina, page 9. And this is what still Daniel Kolak teaches today. In fact, William Patterson asked many times for students to help give them information on anti-Semitism at the school against Jews and Judaism. I told Arnold Stark and I told many people and many professors of this, yet they did not want to hear it. And note 3 on chapter 1 says, some Muslim charitable organizations are known operating fronts for Al-Qaeda's terrorism in its associated guerrilla operations in the neighboring Yugoslavian region of Kosovo. In fact, Osama bin Laden himself is known in 1999 to have been to Kosovo himself and to have implemented various Al-Qaeda training camps. This was published by Tanjug News, which was quoted by Bill Clinton as being Slobodan Milosevic's propaganda machine, and NATO took down that target, the television station, which was an illegal act according to customary accepted international law, because the television station in Beograd is a civilian target, yet NATO took it out to stop this information from going forward. And this information could have stopped 9/11 and thousands of U.S. citizens' deaths. Bill Clinton, you're an asshole. Moving right along here. The past June 2001, the United States assisted capturing important members of Egypt's Jihad Islamist, an Islamist group with clear ties to bin Laden. The United States officials said at that time any future attempts to bomb the United States Embassy in Albania, which was located in Tirana, was thwarted this month because of these arrests. The Islamic Jihad leader, a Mr. Ayman Mr. Jahari, a close associate, the second associate of Mr. bin Laden, warned earlier this year in 2001 that Al-Qaeda actively planned a retaliation attempt at this time for extraditing many of his closest operatives to Guatemala Bay in Cuba, which is probably one of the reasons our President Barack Obama once stated that he was going to close it down, but did not. And this is probably one of the second reasons why the Al-Qaeda has all of this happening right now, and why the Libyan diplomat of the United States is dead, because Barack Obama did not keep his word and closed down the base in Cuba as cited here 10 years ago. EndNote 4 cites from the State Department fact sheet Osama bin Laden, an Islamic extremist financier, in August 1996. Islamic fundamentalist global network of modus operandi places governments not dissimilar to the one recently controlling Afghanistan, the Taliban, and Osama himself, of the Taliban regime, greatly violating human and civil rights of both genders and children, and whose governmental regime is premised upon the Islamic Shihad law, not democratic rule of law, but the Islamic fundamentalist law of Shahadi, which is summed up as follows. Quote 1. Creating an ethnically pure Islamic religious fundamental state globally within Islamic fundamentalist governmental regime exists in it, and making it possible for the expansion of Al-Qaeda to be undertaken as it was in the poor state of Afghanistan within state terrorist training camps sponsored by Al-Qaeda to be undertaken in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Yet, why did Bill Clinton give thousands of U.S. tax dollars and promote the former Nazi Croats? And several years ago, Mein Kampf, written by Hitler himself, was on the #1 best 10 seller list of books in Croatia. Yet Bill Clinton gave them military training. Why, Bill Clinton? Inquiring minds and scholars like myself would like to know. I'm almost done here because YouTube is going to cut me off shortly. But Al-Qaeda had planned, and this is directly from the State Department's quote, Al-Qaeda is undertaken, as it was in poor Afghanistan, to undertake this action everywhere in the world, in democratic states and liberal states. To establish a base of operations somewhere in which rule of law and democratic governments is still in its infant stages, he wants to eradicate it, such as Iran and Iraq, Somalia, where Al-Qaeda can set up, recruit, train, and equip a new Islamic fundamental group for future terrorist activities, in which we see now in where the ships are being the Aden, the port, that waterway of Aden, where the ships are being kidnapped and people are being killed and held for millions of dollars. We knew this 10 years ago, but yet Darko and I were told to shut up about it by Bill Clinton's nasty little, and Richard Holbrooke, which are nasty little men. That's why we believe we could have put an end to 9/11 before it started, by if CNN, whom we had sent this to also, and Fox and CBN and all the news networks in the United States and around the world, we sent this book out to. In fact, I was told by the YMHA in Wayne, New Jersey, in which we had undertaken lectures of, they didn't even know that, they told me the Serbs in World War II fought with the Nazis, which is ironic because they were the only country that were the allies with the United States and fought against the Nazis. Yet here is Bill Clinton giving your U.S. tax dollars and giving you training and military training to Croat Nazis and Al-Qaeda Nazis and Bosniaks in 1999, and bombing Serbia, who was an ally of the U.S. during World War II. It states that Al-Qaeda will undertake future kidnappings in Somalia, in the coast of Aden. And Al-Qaeda wants to abuse, misuse, and also misinterpret true Islamic doctrines in order to pervert Islam, which is one of their goals, and one of the world's largest proselytizing religions, for the use of merely expanding terrorist activities alone, which is disgraceful and disgusting and shameful for real Muslims. For Al-Qaeda to continue advocating and the destruction of Western democratic governmental standards currently espoused with Western and Western European modern civilization. These are perceived by Al-Qaeda as the largest obstacles blocking their overall Islamic goals. Supporting Muslim fundamentalism, as Bill Clinton did in 1999 in propagating his 1999 Kosovo crisis and propagating the Nazi Croats and the Nazi Bosniaks, particularly in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Metohija, Palestine, Chechnya, Afghanistan, China, Philippines, Tanzania, the United States, Tajikistan, Sudan, and also in Somalia, where Sharia is law and the Islamic system of norms and regulation is based on their religious book alone, the Quran. Islamic Fundamentalist Global Network. This is the end of chapter 1. I will continue, and I won't be so tired tomorrow when we discuss chapter 2. Thank you for joining me, and good night, and I hope that you will join me tomorrow when I read chapter 2 in a better state of mind. God bless, and good night.